Day,
We
April
go through this
30th.
every day, Mike.
What's that? Every day is
We go through
Monday.
this every day. We should just put a little sign up, you know, or
It's my
assign
thing now.
somebody to remind us.
It's my calling card, I guess. I don't know. Welcome back to the stream. We're really excited about this one. We've been talking about so this stream that we do in the mornings is mostly focused on tools and resources and ideas of things that you can do. And so we're really excited to have Allison from BrainPop with us today. Steve, why don't you set this up for us?
I would like to. So a couple of things. First off, Allison holds a very, very, very special place in my heart. When I started getting involved in Twitter and stuff early on, and she just said she's been a BrainPop 12 years when we were talking, and this goes back maybe 9 years. I somehow luckily connected with Allison, and I was always interested in tools that I was using in the classroom, and quickly people like Allison made me realize, wow, there are real live people on the other side of these companies that are willing to provide support and encouragement and things. And of course, like everybody, I was a fan of BrainPop from the beginning, and I was using something called GameStar Mechanic, which a lot of you know of, in my class, and BrainPop happened to be having a workshop on GameStar Mechanic that I found out about a little late, and I reached out and I'm like, hey, I'd love to go to this thing, and it was unfortunately a little bit sold out or something. So me being resourceful as I am, I wrote to the CEO of GameStar Mechanic, Mike Levine, and I said, hey, I hear you're doing this thing. Will you be doing any others? This sounds really great. So he said, you know what? We have a few extra seats. Come to this thing. So I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to the BrainPop office. I'm going to hang out with Moby and stuff. And I had been interacting with Allison, but when I got there, we had been talking, and Allison had been really supportive of the things I was doing in the classroom. And she introduced me to Jessica Millstone, and we got to talking, and Jessica was doing this awesome, Jessica and Allison were doing this awesome case study on teachers and gaming and what was happening in classrooms. And they asked if they could come film my classroom, which was awesome. I mean, this is all I've been teaching for years, but all this reaching out, meeting people out in the real world outside of my school and stuff was all kind of new. And so they came and filmed, and we have this video up. And fast forward a little bit, Allison contacts me again and says, hey, we're doing ISTE in San Diego, and would you come and be able to support BrainPop, and do stuff with us there? And so for a teacher, as you probably recall, Mike, being asked by a company like BrainPop to go, all expenses paid, I mean, this was like going to Disneyland for me. So I was able to go, and that got me so hooked on all this whole conference thing and meeting, other people online and everything. And then they invited me to Games for Change. That was my first Games for Change and things. So I kind of credit Allison with sort of kickstarting and jumpstarting this whole second phase of my professional life. So to say that I have a fond feeling for Allison and
here we are.
I love hearing our origin story.
Yes. So I'm, and this is going on so many years, and BrainPop, let me just tell you too, is such an amazing company with a wonderful culture of being so welcoming to teachers and things, and they have such a wonderful community of the BrainPop certified educators and things, and it's just it is such a warm, wonderful place that demonstrates all that ed tech companies could and should be, and others are, but BrainPop leads the charge there. So anyway, throughout the years we've done other things, and one of the projects Allison had been working on was creative coding, and I got to dabble with that a little bit and share some thoughts on that a while back. And when we were doing this week, it only made too much sense to try to get Allison on to talk and share some of the great things about creative coding and how it fits in with what we're talking about this week, which is narrative, storytelling, coding, content creation, and things. So with that, I'd like to introduce Allison Levy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Wow, that was the best introduction ever. I love that story. I'm all emotional.
I love that story too.
Yeah, thank you so much for thinking of BrainPop. I was a classroom teacher for 11 years before a colleague that I used to teach with left to go work at BrainPop, and she kind of lured me over, and I thought, I'll try it for a year. It took me 2 years to even decide to do it. And then I thought I'll try it for a year and then I'll go right back to teaching. And this is now my 12th year at BrainPop. And I feel so lucky because it's something that I used with my students and found it was so engaging and effective. And I usually describe BrainPop like a cult. Like once you discover it as a teacher, there's like, no, why would you leave?
Right.
Love it.
Yeah. So so I'm super excited to talk about the creativity tools that we have now. For many years, BrainPop was really a place that you would come if you were curious about a topic, or as a teacher, if you were introducing students to a new topic or needed to review a topic. And it was very much kids kind of consuming content. And probably 5-6 years ago, we kind of shifted that so that not only could you come to BrainPop to discover and build background information on hundreds of topics across the curriculum, but you could also create an artifact to show what you know about any topic. And we started that out with a concept mapping tool where kids could construct their knowledge visually and make connections not only between key ideas within a topic, but across multiple topics. Then we came up with a movie maker tool called Make a Movie, where kids could create their own BrainPop inspired movies using all of our characters and assets. And then coding and computer science became this big thing. And not like all of a sudden, it was always a big thing, but it became like this real thing in education that surfaced. And as a classroom teacher, I know if I were still in the classroom, I would have been like, okay, I get that computer science is important. I get that coding is important. I would love to be the teacher that introduces this to my kids, but I have no background in it. I have no idea where to start. What am I going to give up, teaching science or spelling, or like, how am I going to possibly fit another thing into the classroom? And it felt like insurmountable. And so what we decided was we were going to take a project-based approach to coding, which I'll show you in a moment, so that kids can create meaningful projects. There would be student choice. They could choose whether they wanted to create a meme or a story or a game. So they have a variety of projects to choose from. And we decided that we wanted to plant this seed of using coding as a way to show what you know, just like you might have students create a poster or a slideshow or a diorama or any other creative project. And so we, if you're familiar with BrainPop, we put a coding button, creative coding button, on every single topic, alongside every topic, so that as a teacher, if I'm teaching multiplication or Grace Hopper or DNA or whatever subject I'm doing, I might get that little hint of inspiration and think, I wasn't planning on incorporating coding into this. Let me see how I can do that. And so we can focus on that today, and I can walk you through. We've been really fortunate to partner with Scratch. So we have block-based coding as well as VidCode for text-based coding. And again, we have these incredible partnerships with these organizations, and we're able to create sort of a custom experience based on their platforms that integrate BrainPop assets. So I will show you
Awesome.
that. It's very fun to see everybody coming into the room and saying hello. Yeah, Moby's big on the side-eye with Tim.
We lost your screen, Allison, so you can just reshare your screen.
Back.
Yeah.
And we'll start, just so everybody is aware, during this crazy time, BrainPop is providing free access, whether you're a school or a family. So if you just go to brainpop.com, you'll see this get free access button. Are you able to see my mouse when I move it around?
Usually.
Okay. So I'm trying to make things as obvious as possible. And so another thing to note, so obviously you could click on that Get Free Access button if you don't have access. You want to make sure that you create an individual account for yourself. And so I am going in and logging in with my individual account. And if you've used BrainPop for a long time and haven't used individual accounts, this is like a key thing that you want to take advantage. And if you go into our help section in our footer, you can find out about how to set this up for yourself and for your students. But this individual account is going to allow you as an educator to create assignments for your kids, track their progress. As a student, it allows you to submit your assignments to your teachers. There's a built-in feedback system in there. So once you submit something, you could see how it was graded or any feedback, written feedback that your teacher gives. So there's a whole system to it that really helps you take advantage of all of the features of BrainPop. It's also cool because it shows all of your the movies that you've watched and the projects that you've done alongside of the creativity tools. Teachers and kids also love taking the quizzes and our challenges. And so this is a record of all of those things. And so you access all of that through your dashboard. I'm logged in as a teacher right now. And let's just see if people can just start introducing themselves so we know whether you're a teacher or a student, and if you have any particular grade levels and even topics that you're interested in focusing on. I'll give people a moment to.
We definitely have some tech coaches in the chat. We have some EdTech company folks in the chat. We have at least one student of Steve's.
Cool. Very cool.
That we know.
Cool.
We have some teachers, a couple of classroom teachers, a couple of computer science teachers.
Awesome.
So
okay, this is great. This can be great.
You might even, Allison, you might even recognize at least one.
We know most of the people in the chat right now.
Like it's family.
Sean Arnold is here, I believe.
Cool. Yay, Sean.
And I'm sure others that you know.
Second grade. So we'll look at some how this translates for younger kids as well. BrainPop is geared for third grade and up. BrainPop Junior is K through 3. Although I tended to kind of mix and match, and when I was teaching 4th and 5th grade, sometimes I'd even dip into BrainPop Junior. So, Michelle, hello. Cool. Okay. So I'm just going to pick a topic, and we can switch around and choose other topics if people want to explore. But you see now that I'm logged in, I'm seeing a featured topic that will change every single day. And you can see alongside the movie, we're pointing out a couple of our creativity tools here. So we have the movie tool that I mentioned, Make a Movie. We have Make a Map, that's the concept mapping tool, and Creative Coding. So instead of jumping into it from here, I'm just going to show you from a topic page how it looks. So we call these our topic pages, where you've got the movie and then all the features to the right of the movie, as well as all of the support resources for educators right along the top. If I were logged in as a student, obviously I wouldn't see this teach this topic bar along the top. So you can see I'm on the reptiles topic. Here's the creative coding button. I'm going into it. And again, because I'm logged in as a teacher, the very first thing on top is educator resources. I encourage you to check that out. I'm not going to go into that right now, but I'm happy to review that toward the end of our time. And as I scroll down, you're going to see a menu of different projects. And so we've got projects, like I mentioned, by Scratch, and you can see underneath each project, whether it's a Scratch or a VidCode project. So I'm going to start by showing a Scratch project, and I'm going to use Digital Museum, where kids create a digital exhibit to show what they know about the topic of reptiles. But you can see kids can also create a story, coding a conversation between two characters. They can create a sorting game. And with VidCode, they can create a flag. And we use flag kind of loosely, as in you can create something visual with text that represents a person or a movement or a culture or a place, or it could be an author. So it's kind of loose. You can apply this flag design to any topic that you're studying. This one is an interactive comic, a newscast where they can choose a video clip or an image and create a scrolling headline below it using code. And of course, one of the top favorites is creating a meme. So you could become that teacher who assigns her kids to create a meme for homework or for a school assignment. And that will be that hopefully that will be that, like, I'll never forget in 4th grade, my teacher assigned me to make a meme. So hopefully it's that kind of memorable project that they're making with these. So we'll go into Digital Museum. And let's see what you guys know about reptiles. So all of these, we'll always start with a prompt to kind of focus the goal. So here we're coding a digital museum to show what we know about reptiles. And when I'm first starting out, I've got this little overview of the project. And when I click on Show Me, this is a getting started tutorial that walks you through. I'm going to close that out for now, but I'll show you if you ever want to get back to it. I could go right back to it here, as well as access these other short tutorials for specific things. You probably also noticed that this looks a lot different than Scratch, if you're familiar with Scratch. We made this with the intention of it being not overwhelming. So if this is your first time coding or teaching coding, you're only starting out with a couple of blocks. And you can see the block palette on the left-hand side. And my tutorial tells me how to drag these in and connect them. And just like when we're working with students for whom a full page of text is overwhelming, we teach them how to kind of chunk it out and block it out using a bookmark. Same thing here. We're just trying to give them the basics with just a couple of blocks. And by the way, they can do a lot with just these couple of blocks. But when they're ready, they can click on the Show More button, and they can make more complicated projects. And if they're already familiar with Scratch, or they've been coding for a while, they can click this and get a whole lot of blocks. So they can still create quite sophisticated projects, even if they are familiar.
And Allison, let me clarify. Yeah. This is a modified version of Scratch, yes?
Exactly.
Nice.
So it's another big difference that you'll see is if I go to add a sprite. So let's walk through this project together. And sometimes I like to use the KWL chart, the Digital Museum as an alternative to a KWL chart. So a lot of teachers will start a new topic by finding out what kids know. K, like making a T chart or H chart. What do you know about the topic? W, what do you want to know? What questions do you have? And then L, what have you learned? So it's something that we would write on chart paper in classrooms, kind of a very common
like teaching 101 right there, folks.
Right, exactly. KWL. So to mix it up a little, let's talk about reptiles and see what you guys already know and want to know. So I'm keeping an eye on the comments. Tell me one thing that you think of when you think of reptiles, or one thing that you know about reptiles.
One thing we know about reptiles.
And I might do this before I've even introduced this topic. Great, thank you guys. I see the
yes.
I see the
Scaly.
comments. Okay, so we've
endothermic is a great word.
Cold-blooded. I was even scared to pronounce it. Nice. Endothermic, related to birds. I love it. Okay, so I am going to go over here and then click on Add. And you'll see, because we're on the reptiles topic, we've given you all of the BrainPop art assets or sprites that relate to reptiles. And we also have some BrainPop characters in here, and we even have some Scratch objects and characters. So I want something that's going to relate to one of the things you guys, my students, just told me. And somebody just said they're scaly. So I'm looking for an asset that shows scales. So I'm going to grab this one. Now that just plopped right on top of our character Annie's head. I don't like it there. So I'm going to move it up to this shelf. And you can see for this sprite, there's no code in the code editor yet. So I would say to my kids, okay, we just said that that reptiles are scaly. They have scales. So I'm going to use my say block, this purple say block. I just dragged it in here, and I'm going to replace the text with a fact that I could teach other people. So let's say reptiles. Now I could be doing this with 2nd graders or 7th graders, super flexible. Now, nothing is happening right now here. So I would prompt my students to help me troubleshoot and figure out what's going on. And of course, we need to code it to tell it what to do. So now I've dragged in the, when this sprite is clicked, say reptiles are scaly for 2 seconds. Now I want to test my code. So I'm asking you guys, but answering for you. What do you think we do to test our code? So I'm going to click on this sprite, and it should say, and then my kids can make a prediction, reptiles are scary. So let's see if that happens. Very cool. So that's just exciting on its own because we just did that with code. Even though it's super simple, you're empowering your kids, you're pumping them up. You guys just coded this plain old picture of a scale to say something, and we can teach other kids about this. Now let's get a little fancier and let's add a sound to it. And we'll make a water drop sound. And I also want to add a special effect to it. So let's ghost it out a little bit and let's see what happens. And I haven't even touched these numbers yet. So again, you can introduce just a little bit and encourage the kids to figure out what happens when they play around with this. So again, what am I going to do to test out my code? I'm going to click on this sprite. I heard my water drop, and then it ghosted out. I don't know if you could see that it kind of got a little bit lighter. Maybe I want to change that number to see it more clearly. Okay, that's super ghosty, so maybe I went too far with my numbers. But there's a lot of room for kids to experiment. Obviously, you're weaving in math, even though we're talking about reptiles. This is easily cross-curricular. And I can go ahead and add my own sprites to be my guides of my museum. I'm going to delete Annie, and maybe I want to code Moby instead of, we give you a little bit of what we call starter code and encourage you to change it. So I'm actually going to choose my own character. I'm going to get rid of Moby here. Sorry, Moby. And I'll add one more character. And this time I'm going to add Nat. So Nat is a new character of ours. I'm going to take this one and make her a little bit bigger. And I'm going to code her to welcome everybody to our museum. And I'll tell her to say, click on an, all right, let's use museum vocabulary, an artifact to learn. And I'm going to make sure that Nat talks. I can also use the green flag to start this if I prefer that. So I can start my project with the green flag. Now I have some directions. Maybe this is a little bit too fast, so I can change the amount of time that my text appears. And I might keep going with kids on day one, just populating the top row of what we think we know about reptiles. So I could go back and add another asset. Somebody else said that they are cold-blooded. We had a couple other comments in there. So I can go ahead and add more sprites, code them to do what I want them to do. and I've got my top row of my museum on day one, things that I think I know. Then I might tell kids to go home and brainstorm, what do you want to know? What are you curious about? And the next day we could come in and add our questions on the second row. I can change my backdrop. So for museum, maybe I want more than 2 shelves. Maybe I'll organize it as kind of like all the things that I want in common on one row, etc. Or I could also do something a little more open-ended. And I'm actually going to pause here, see if there's any questions, and then show you a couple examples of students' work so you get a sense of these museums. Oops, I meant to change my backdrop.
There's no questions just yet. If there are, just chime in anytime you want to ask a question. There was certainly a question about milk. I'm not really following it, and I don't know. I don't think it actually has anything to do with what you're talking about, Allison.
Okay.
That's all. That is also the nature of Twitch.
Yeah, don't worry about the milk conversation.
Probably my 12-year-old, maybe.
No, it was me.
Chocolate milk. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm gonna back out of here for a moment. We can come back if people do have questions. Oh, and you can see before I go out of here, as a teacher, I could save this. I could make a model project for my students. I can assign it to my students. So that's all super easy to do right from here. Before it allows me to leave, it'll make sure I want to leave. Okay, so I backed out one step, and I'm going to click on See Some Examples to look at a few examples of student work. So what I love about the creativity tools on BrainPop is we're really big into this concept that I learned from Lego, actually, called solution diversity. So instead of seeing cookie cutter projects where they all look like the same worksheet, everybody's looks really different. So even though these are all the same type of project, you can see how different they look. So I'm going to show you one example museum. And this one is on Agatha Christie. And I think this one is by a 5th grader. So each time you click one of the pictures, you learn some facts about it. Another example that I'll show you is oh, sorry. Nope, that was Agatha Christie was an older student. I think that was a 7th or 8th grader. This is a 5th grader, and this is a very different looking digital museum than mine or the Agatha Christie one. It's kind of got an underwater vibe. You can see he coded Annie to welcome people and Moby to welcome people. And when you click on each of the artifacts in the museum, he's showing what he knows about it. And I think some of these will do like a special effect or some kind of motion. That's another example of a museum. We've also got stories. I'm going to just share one of these. I love this very dramatic moment in this one. So this student is showing what they know about Frida Kahlo by creating a conversation using code or a story. And this one you'll see is a little bit more complex. And they had to figure out their timing. I love that dramatic moment of, that's right, I'm Frida Kahlo.
This is really great. The one of the things, so we for people who've been watching, we've been doing also these like Minecraft build challenges, and one of them was an Inform the Public COVID museum where kids, did research and kind of shared a timeline of the virus. That would be so perfect in this environment. I mean, it would be, it like this was meant for it. So we should probably kind of reframe that project for kids. I don't know if you've done much with COVID on BrainPop. I would have to think there's stuff.
We have done a ton. So we actually, as soon as this hit, we put out a coronavirus topic. Mm-hmm. We also have a new distance learning topic. We have a new news feature on BrainPop. that just launched. So those are all available, totally free. And so you can see we have a BrainPop topic that teaches about COVID, and then you could create your own coding project about COVID. And we've been seeing people post amazing student projects through Twitter and social media. So we've been, if you search BrainPop's Twitter feed, you'll see some of those examples. We're going to get those on the site as well.
I'm going to also throw in our chat. One of my colleagues' 6th grade students, that's not the right, I don't know if that'll work. Let's see if this link works. Maybe not. Scratch that for a second. I'll find the right link. But they did a project in Scratch, for their COVID museum. So that's kind of cool. So anyway, carry on.
Cool.
Yeah, that
I
link
love
works.
the idea of mixing Minecraft into it too. I know my kids would be very excited about that. But yeah, so we do have plenty of topics on COVID. I'm going to log out for a second just to quickly show you how to navigate.
One of the cool things about doing like COVID stuff on things like Minecraft and BrainPop is that this really hits on the young kids, the kids that relate to like love even Tim and Moby and align themselves to them or attach themselves. It's like we saw the same thing when I was working at Logix Academy. We saw the same thing with Dash and Dot and how kids just loved their Dash robot and kind of like attached themselves to it a little bit emotionally. And so now you have this like familiar place and this familiar voice and these familiar characters talking about something that's, to be honest, pretty damn scary, right now. And so you have the opportunity, especially at when they're at home and they don't fully understand why they're not at school, to then be able to come on and see it explained by someone that, or something, or like a character that they like and appreciate and love even in some cases. And that, I think that makes a huge difference at helping explain what's going on right now to young kids. Exactly.
And that's actually, speaking of origin stories, that's how BrainPop started. So our founder, Dr. Kadar, is a pediatric immunologist. So he was dealing with young patients who had things like asthma, and not being able to breathe is a scary thing. And so he was looking for a way to help kids understand it better, because when you understand it better, it's not as scary. And so he started making these animated videos. They were originally on CD-ROM at that time. And cool, great to hear, Linda. And it was really intended to become very health focused, and used between families, students, kids and their parents, to help them get their heads around what they were dealing with. And now you can see it kind of caught on to the education world, and people started requesting non-health related topics. And that was the way BrainPop started out, is to break down scary topics to make them not so scary. So yep, we do have COVID specific resources like our coronavirus topic. We have a BrainPop Junior movie on washing hands.
Nice.
We have all this support resources to help get your head around being a homeschool teacher all of a sudden as working parents. If you don't have the background of being a teacher and you find all of a sudden you are a full-time teacher, we try to make it as easy as possible. And so all of those resources are available, starting from the BrainPop homepage. You can see we've also got it translated into multiple languages. And then this is a good link to throw in the chat as well. We have all kinds of distance learning resources. We've been doing webinars on it. So please feel free to take advantage of everything that we are offering now, because it's really here to help make your lives easier. Should we take a look at a text-based project?
Cool.
Yes.
Cool. Okay. So I'm switching back out, logging back in. And I remember somebody has a second grader too. So I'll show you how you access this through BrainPop Junior in a moment as well. I think you saw the example of the math problem I gave. These are really worth spending a little time looking at examples of. We have different sorting games. I'll show you one real quick. This one is also a little more complex. There are multiple levels to it. But when you just think about this, it's pretty basic. It's a multiple choice question, but you can see they have to really think through and figure out what are we going to code as a response when they get a question wrong as well as right. So it's a great application of higher order thinking skills, thinking through the whole system and putting kids in the role of designers, not just consumers of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So for VidCode, I mentioned we have a flag project, an interactive comic project. Here's an example of that. So by clicking on one of the characters, you trigger a response from the other. We've got newscasts that I mentioned to you. So here's an example of a newscast about Amelia Earhart. And you can see they coded a scrolling headline. And then I'm kind of whizzing through these because I want to jump into one. This is one of my favorites. I think this was by an 8th grader from a science class. So it's a bit of a challenge to try and demonstrate what you know in a meme format. The kids have to really be very succinct about demonstrating their understanding with just a little bit of text and an image. So we were going to go and look at a VidCode project, and let's switch up our topic. Any requests to look at how you would do this with a topic that you're studying and haven't thought about incorporating coding into?
I used to actually do this all the time with my students. I taught grade 2 to 8 computer science, and I used to just, like, especially if we had just a few minutes left in the day, I'd be like, all right, what do you want to learn about? And because there's so much stuff on BrainPop, you could literally, the kids could say almost anything, and there would be something for them to learn about. It was great. I mean, I usually leaned towards the engineering and tech sections and the science sections.
Yeah.
But I mean, if they were learning something else in another class, I was always more than happy to do cross-curricular stuff. So I think it's great. The ones on computer science are pretty fun. I've always enjoyed. I used BrainPop all the time in the class, with my students. It was great, especially the younger ones.
Very cool. So for younger students, you won't see, and I just jumped into the coronavirus topic, which feels applicable to everybody right now, even though that's not what you would normally be teaching. The younger students will only see the Scratch projects. So I'm going to show you an example of a newscast. That's the one with the scrolling headline. Okay, so we've got our prompt, helps kids focus. So you can see this looks very different than the interface of Scratch. So VidCode has kind of guided tutorial, step-by-step guide here. You could always skip ahead or kind of preview what you're going to be learning here. And then we've got our assets over here on the lower right. And again, we're providing you with assets that are related to the specific topic. So the first step is always encouraging kids to just explore what's going on in here, click around, see what sprites are here, see what backgrounds are here, and sketch on paper to make a plan. And then we get them started. So the very first step is telling me to add a video to the newscast by dragging or clicking on one of my choices over here. So I'm going to use this gnarly image of the coronavirus. And you can see it creating the animation. And the next thing it's telling me to do is add a headline. So I'm going to go down here under the Effects tab and click or drag on the text block. So you can see VidCode is it's allowing the code to populate in the code editor, and now it's starting to tell me. You can see here in the bold purple to start messing with the code and manipulating the code. So hello has nothing to do with my message that I want to say here. So I would ask my students, so what's something that we might want to include as a scrolling headline? It's definitely going to include the word gnarly. So I'm going to write
word of the day.
So you're encouraging your kids to think about, like, if you're the news reporter, what's the headline? How can you consolidate this into something that will get people's attention, that doesn't have too many words? Maybe this is something that we jot down on paper and have multiple drafts of until we get it just right. And we get peer feedback going. So my headline will be, feel free to throw in suggestions. I'm going to say,
coronavirus officially declared gnarly.
There it
Declares itself gnarly.
Okay. So you can see it updates immediately, but my text got cut off and now I'm starting to panic. But I don't need to panic because I can see I'm going to learn how to manipulate the headline size in the upcoming steps. So I'm not going to continue too much more here because I know it's a lot more fun to play than to watch somebody else doing this. But you can see that I'm starting to learn how to change the font, change the size, change the positioning, which I love challenging kids to play around with. So if I want my headline to be positioned differently.
We have a coding hot take in the chat. Those quotes are going to mess you up.
That's what I did. I was wondering what I did. Because I did gnarly in
code in there.
All right. So thank you for helping me trouble.
Brad Schruffler, everybody.
Oh my gosh, Brad. Thank you.
With the eyes on the quotes.
Oh, now you probably could. Is there a way though? Could you put single quotes in there if you wanted to? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'd have to try it. Brad.
You would, wouldn't you?
Survey says.
Single quotes. Brad says. Brad says single quotes are coding approved.
Or you'd have to do like a slash something, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know if we're going there.
So I don't know if you noticed that my position moved a little bit. And also when I hover over here in my player bar, it switches and tells me exactly where I am. So I can figure out, I want it closer to the bottom. So I would challenge my students to figure out, so what would I want my Y value to be if I want it toward the bottom? And maybe they'll start trying in increments. So let's move a little bit down. Maybe I want to try a bigger increment. Maybe I try 850 and it moves right off the screen and kids have to figure out what happened there. So lots of room for trial and error. I'm weaving in teaching X and Y coordinates into my current events or health or science or social studies lesson. So there's so many ways to weave tons of amazing learning into whatever your topic is that you may not have thought about weaving in before. So that's one of the things that I love about these. So it will continue to take you through changing the color, making a background bar that this will kind of highlight, and you're also teaching them to make sure your font is legible. I find that white font is really hard to read right now. So I'm gonna be able to create a box, a headline box, and put my text on top of that box to make it stand out. So these are just super, super fun projects to do. Now, if your students are like, well, I've been using, this is JavaScript that we're doing here, as Brad knows. I've been coding since I was 5 years old. I already know JavaScript. They are certainly not limited to the tutorial here, this is just an open JavaScript editor. So they can do anything they want in here. They can make it a more sophisticated project if they want to. And you can also challenge students who are quickly getting the hang of things to click on the Need Help tool, which gives you a lot of other options as well. So you can encourage them to see if they can play around with some of these other concepts and make something happen that's not included in the tutorial for their project. Any questions? Okay,
That's so
I'm
cool.
save
I love that it has a tutorial as well, so it walks you through it.
Oh, you know what I forgot? I'm so glad that you said that. One of the things that I often space out on, but I should have showed you in both projects, is if you come up to the question mark on the upper right-hand side, this shows you a 1-minute video overview of the project.
Use our newscast coding project to show
interface.
what you know about a BrainPop topic. Ever watch the news and see the scrolling words at the bottom of the screen? That's what we'll be creating in this project. You'll select a video for your background and decide what message you'd like to show. Then you'll use code to make those words scroll across the screen to create your own newscast. You'll do this in the project interface. Let's explore it. The prompt is the question that your animation will answer.
So this goes on to walk you through the interface itself, which I've already done. It's so much more succinct to show this video than talk your way through it. So ignore what I just did and use the video as a way to introduce it, and then just set your kids free. It's okay if you don't know how to code or all the answers. You figure it out with them together. And my mistake in Gnarly, like, that's a great teaching opportunity and learning opportunity to learn from students too. So,
you know what I love, Allison, is that we talk so much about, and Mike mentioned this before, about bringing coding into other curricular areas. This is such a beautiful way to just be able to add a small coding activity to go directly with whatever curricular topic you're talking about. And I think that's what has been often missing in the way we get challenged with how and where to teach coding. So bravo.
Thank you. That's great. That's great to hear. And it's been exciting to see the positive feedback, because again, like, in a bit of a selfish way, we designed this for me, like a teacher like myself, who this is not my background. I'm no coder. You can see from my gnarly mistakes that I'm not a expert coder at all, but I feel like I can figure it out with my students as I go along. So hopefully you find that too.
So Sean says, I always make mistakes on purpose so that the students can catch it. I do not make the mistakes on purpose. I just make mistakes and love when the students are part of catching it. So I love that whole idea of both ways, being able to model that when we're coding, that we make those mistakes and that we have to learn how to proofread and debug code, which is such an interesting, talk about it, and it permeates all areas of problem solving. So when we talk about, why coding and things, I think at the heart of it is just that if you go through that process of sort of, debugging, that carries with you in every area of problem solving. And I think it's so important, whether or not we're necessarily interested in going further with computer science or whatnot.
Totally. And you just reminded me of two more things I want to show you. So BrainPop has a lot of content around computer science. If you just search for computer science or coding as a keyword, you'll see it brings up what we call a theme page. So this is a collection of all of our resources. You saw we have one for STEM as well. So we've got topics like functions or variables. If you want to dig deeper into some of the concepts behind coding, we focus on people like Ada Lovelace and Alan Turing. There's a ton of just content to build background on all of these concepts. We've got some great games by organizations that we've partnered with around coding. So these are games that take a puzzle-based approach to coding as opposed to this project-based approach that we're using creative coding for. So these are things like code the puppy to get to the car. But those are great, and those are by we have games by Tinker, by Code Combat, Turtle Academy, Google Blockly. Run Marco is a great game. And that was the other thing I wanted to show you as well. I'm going to switch over to BrainPop Junior. If you've got younger kids, we do the same thing. We like I said before, we have the same coding button. So I'll go into our mindfulness topics. And I have my sound off right now, but everything that you mouse over in BrainPop Junior, which is for K through 3, is read aloud for you. So kids don't have to be fluent readers to be successful on the site. And you can see in the features below the topic, we've got a creative coding button, and they can get to the Scratch projects from here.
Yeah,
so those are all available for younger kids as well.
Allison, how much of this is free and how much of this costs money?
So we have found that creative coding got such a great response. We used to sell it as an add-on to your BrainPop subscription, but we felt that it was something that everybody should have alongside BrainPop. So we changed that model. So now, whenever you subscribe to BrainPop, using the individual accounts feature, you are able to access all of our creativity tools. So coding and the movie maker tool and the concept map tool, all of it is included with BrainPop subscriptions. But as I mentioned, right now everything is available for free through the school year.
Nice. So if you're watching right now and you're what are we, 8 weeks in, some of us, to teaching from home, and you're running out of ideas, which is inevitable eventually. This is an amazing, to be honest, resource of ideas, different things that you can do for all different kind of grade ranges. Like how high does the grade range content kind of go to on BrainPop?
Yeah, great question. So all of our content is aligned to standards through high school, through 12th grade. And we do get feedback from high school teachers that use it. I did a workshop for high school teachers recently, and they were like, I wish I knew about this earlier. But I would say we mostly see K through 8.
Yeah.
And I'll just point out a couple other things. So from the homepage, as I scroll down, we also have a lot of SEL content, and the conversations that I've been part of and keeping up with around COVID stuff is kids' emotional well-being right now is way more important than academic stuff. Not that that's not important, but there's a lot of resources that you can use on BrainPop for SEL as well. So we've got those here. We've got pacing guides. So again, as a parent, if you're like, I don't know about teaching my kid, I'm working, I don't have a lot of time, what's good for 2nd grade or what's good for my 6th grader? You can check out our pacing guides. Helping your kid avoid the summer slump. I mean, this is such a crazy time right now in the world and in education, and the fears of like, will my kid be able to keep up with their grade level stuff is very real. So we've got all kinds of resources that you can take advantage for that stuff. And we're very open to feedback. So if you are wishing that there was a resource on here and you're not finding it, we're all ears. I'll put my email in the chat. You're welcome to reach out. I would love to hear how it's going if you're trying out creative coding with your students or your own children. I'd love to see the projects that they're making and maybe even feature them on BrainPop. So I would love to stay in touch and hear how all of this goes.
Awesome. And how, so put your email address in the chat if you'd like to do that. Also, how can people connect with you on Twitter? I know you're on Twitter.
Yeah.
We've been
So
tagging you.
BrainPop is just the Twitter handle is just BrainPop. Here I'm giving you my email address. It's AllisonL@BrainPop. My Twitter handle is Allison. I think that's right.
Pretty simple.
ALLISYN.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, Allison's parents were forward thinking, and they figured if they spelled her name this way, she would be able to get that Twitter handle.
Exactly.
And probably her personal Gmail address, and all of that stuff. Nice. That's very good. I had to be I was a beta tester for Gmail, so I'll tell you how old I am. But anyways, I'm lucky that I got M Washburn because I was in early. At Allison is awesome. Twitter handle.
I feel like I really scored there. Yeah.
Very cool.
And I just want to say how appreciative I am of everybody, of you guys having me join you today, and of everybody taking the time during such a stressful time to learn more about how to help kids. So I admire everybody that's in the chat. The students, amazing. The teachers, Michelle, Brad, Sean, it's so good to see you. Thank you for everything you're doing. We are in awe of how you're handling the situation and how above and beyond everybody is going to do what we can to get through this together and help kids stay strong. So.
And no pressure. We'd love to see a regular BrainPop show on this channel. So we're gonna talk to Allison.
Yeah, but I'll talk to people.
Yeah, that would be amazing because people have really loved this, and I think people would love to see more of this more often. So that would be great. We should plug some things because there's lots going on today. This is a big day. Thursdays are a busy day on the channel. At 2:00 we have the PolyUp US Challenge live stream with some more guests and talking about the US Challenge, and then at 3:00 we have the Gone Home game study. We're getting really actually, I don't know. I shouldn't say we're getting really close to the end because I have no idea.
In theory, we should be, because it's supposed to be about a 3-hour game, and we're going into hour 4, but we'll leave that
We're also
alone.
taking our time,
Yeah,
exploring the house, and kind of talking about how we use games to teach narrative, and games that are narratives, and how you can use that in language learning is really, really interesting. And then just talking about the game itself, because it is an awesome story. So Gone Home Game Study, 3:00 on this channel as well. Be sure to follow us, folks. If you're not, lots of new people in the stream today, which is awesome.
Yeah.
If you're not following Inside Participate, up at the top of the screen, there's a little heart button right up above Steve's head, probably, almost literally. And you should click on that so that you're following us. We're almost at 100 followers, so that's pretty exciting. And you'll get a notification when we go live so that you don't miss anything. And then down at the bottom of the screen is links to the Participate communities that we're kind of involved in, and kind of talking about the game-based learning community, and all the other places that are kind of engaging on the channel. So please click on those, learn more about them, get involved, because there's lots of stuff going on Participate itself on the platform that you'd be interested in watching. That's all our time for today.
And,
thanks, Allison.
If I could, Allison, thank you so much.
Yes.
And also, please say hello to all of my good friends at BrainPop. I miss everybody.
I will.
Maybe today I'll go out of my way and reach out to everybody and say hello. We love what you're doing, and the resources you're providing during this time are invaluable. So thank you, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.